You're listening to ProdCast, the personal productivity podcast from CRM Audio, with your hosts Matthew C. Anderson and Joel Lindstrom. This episode of ProdCast is sponsored by Ingenious. Ingenious Connector Enterprise integrates your telephone system into Microsoft Dynamics 365 and CRM for increased phone agent productivity. The solution equips service desks and contact centers with features like screen pop, click to dial, automated call logging, and call reports for comprehensive view of interactions. Enable efficient customer service and intelligent decision-making with Ingenious. Visit their website at ingenious.com. That's ingenius.com. We thank Ingenious for sponsoring ProdCast, the personal productivity podcast from CRM Audio.
I've been to the airport a couple of times here in the last few days, and I'm trying to make sure I stay as productive as I can.
How do you stay productive at the airport? I know nobody wants to go to the airport. What you want to do is get where you're going and get back home. So the airport is usually, people complain about it. I had a layover, my flight was 3 hours, that kind of thing. And if you don't watch it, it can throw you off your schedule. How do you stay productive at the airport?
Yeah, so for me, this breaks into a few different categories. There's before I even get to the airport, all the prep stuff that I can do. When I'm at the airport is the second category, and that may include a second airport if there's a layover involved. And then there's right before I'm going to board the plane and then be in the air, what happens during that period of time to be able to stay productive. So taking it in those chunks, I think the first one is before even getting there. And that the first and foremost is TSA pre-check.
Yep.
And actually, I've gone a step further beyond TSA pre-check. I actually did global entry. Are you familiar with that?
Yep, I got global entry.
Yeah, so it's only $10 more. It covers the same 5-year period of time, but if you're coming back in from Canada or Mexico, you've got your effective flyby lane when coming through customs.
Yeah, so you got global entry, Nexus. I don't know what the difference is between them, but yeah, if you travel internationally, and that includes the TSA pre-check. Yeah. Now, some airports, I had one time I was flying where I intentionally didn't go in the TSA pre-check line because there was a longer line there. Even though I had to remove my shoes,
you had to take out your shoes, your laptop.
I went with the non. So I think kind of the word has gotten out, and more people have signed up for TSA pre-check. I still think it's well worth the cost. If your employer will pay for it, even better. But if they won't, pay the whatever $50, $60 or whatever it is, and get yourself TSA pre-check.
Yeah, the $50-$60 is well worth it in the hours you're going to save over time of avoiding those lines at the airport. Though I tell you the time that was the least effective time for TSA pre-check, and that was in the Minneapolis-St. Paul airport right after the Super Bowl. Because they opened up every line for trying to get the thousands and thousands of people through there the Monday after the Super Bowl. It was an absolute madhouse. They did overall a great job of being able to process people through, but your TSA pre-check did nothing for you that day. So the other thing from a before you even go to the airport standpoint is just making sure that you're kind of right sizing the amount of packing that you're doing in your carry-on bags. I tend to do all carry-on, a roller bag that I can put in the overhead compartment and a backpack for all the rest of my stuff. It's really easy to let stuff just kind of collect in that backpack that makes sense for my day-to-day. But when flying and trying to find things either on the plane or have the right things available when I'm at the airport, that's one that has to get parsed through before I'm even going to leave the house.
Yeah, I'm notorious for forgetting one item. One trip it'll be socks, the other time it'll be toothpaste. One thing I've done is intentionally cutting out things that could either get me stopped by TSA by TSA or make me have to take something out of my bag. So I figured out certain things like toothpaste. Every hotel will give you toothpaste. and so I don't pack toothpaste. I got an electric razor for when I travel, so I don't have to bring shaving cream with me. And by doing that, I've simplified my packing routine a lot.
Oh, nice.
And I can keep a bag of the personal items with the electric razor in it ready to go in my suitcase, so that's just one less thing on my mind when I pack.
Yeah, that's a great one. Another couple of things on the efficiency of planning standpoint there. Big one is make sure to have a couple of extra charging cords. There's nothing worse than not having, for me as an Android guy, the micro USB or USB-C, depending on which device I'm talking about, or I have an iPad as well, so having all of those different connectors, or the traditional USB plug to a variety of different things on the other end is a nice one to have in there just as a backup for in case I either forget it at home or leave it plugged in somewhere else at the hotel or wherever that might be.
For me, I'm likely to leave my charger plugged in at the conference room of the customer that I'm visiting.
Exactly. All right, so next thing from a productivity standpoint, I mean, I travel and have traveled a fair bit. I have literally the same place that I go to and park at the airport every single time. So I know how long it's going to take me to get from the parking spot to the actual airport.
How do you do that? How do you make sure that parking spot's available?
So I don't know that there's a huge trick to it other than maybe it's the place that nobody else wants to be. No, but where I park, at Minneapolis, I'm pretty sure it's the same parking area or like floor and colored parking ramp that most of the airport staff is using. So as they're, kind of cycling through, there are spaces that are opening up when that isn't necessarily going to be happening for someone who, hopped on a plane on Monday and they're going to be gone through, Thursday night or Friday morning. So, for me, I'm always riding the airport either in or out with somebody who works at the airport. So, that might be why I'm finding those free spots. So then, actually, once we're in and we're in the airport, whether it's the first, kind of the first airport that you're in, or if you have a layover, any of that, I'd be happy to share kind of what my routine for getting stuff done is, but I'm curious if you have anything that you do.
Look for a power plug. It's usually the first thing I do. And I've learned that if you see one, it's most likely nobody's using it because it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
I've had that
here's a
happen
question.
Several times.
Here's a question.
Yeah.
Do you carry with yourself a power splitter for a 3-prong power adapter so you can leech off of somebody else?
I don't, but that's a great idea. The other thing I find is either from overuse or they intentionally making them shoddy. I find that the plugs at the airport, things fall out of them extremely easily. Mm-hmm. And if you ever had that where you plug something in, it just won't stay in there, probably from people banging on it or whatever. But I like the bringing a power splitter so you can be the nice guy that shares.
Yeah, I tell you, there's no quicker way to make friends at the airport than the Atlanta airport's particularly bad for this one, but they're getting better. But finding those and finding one that's open in particular, so the splitter is very helpful there.
Now, what are you doing about Wi-Fi at the airport? Because basically, airport Wi-Fi is probably the least secure connection you can be on. Mm-hmm. And it's extremely slow too, but there's a high risk of going since the the recent Spectre and other things that have happened. I'm really leery about going online, so I try and use my hotspot. But when you're at Reagan International and you're in the notoriously bad X terminal that's that they have a million different planes going, you just can't get a connection. So what do you do for that?
Yeah, so a couple of things. One, sometimes I'll risk it, but I don't like to. But I do have on my main computer, I have a VPN client that's installed to be able to do get that secure connection tunnel through the airport and make sure that there's nobody listening in as part of that. It's not necessarily a free option, and it doesn't make it any slower or rather any faster. In fact, it makes things a little bit slower because there's an extra hop that you're having to go through there. But the privacy and security that comes along with that is just a great peace of mind.
Okay. So what VPN do you use, if you don't mind me asking?
It's just it's the Auto VPN client on Windows 10.
Okay.
I've used others previously. I'm spacing on the names off the top of my head.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea.
I mean, there are services that I've looked at that are in the big picture not a whole lot of money month to month. That will give a VPN option as well for those places where you don't necessarily trust it. It can be a coffee shop too.
Right. But as far as what I do, I do try and charge up before I go, so I don't need to plug in if I can't. Sometimes if I'm coming straight from work and working all day, my phone will be a little bit dead. I do have a power brick that I travel with, and I found like the one model that can actually charge a Surface completely. So that's been nice. I don't know if I have it to tell you what the brand is, but having that and making sure that's charged. But sometimes that's a hassle because you have one more thing you've got to remember to plug in.
I keep an external charger, but it's not going to be able to do the Surface. It'll do an iPad, but it won't do a Surface.
Right. And then what I do is you get to the airport, you get on the plane. A lot of people's knee-jerk reaction is, I want to relax, I want to watch a movie. I found that the time waiting for the plane or getting on the plane during the flight can be my most productive time. So I will churn through my to-dos, and if I'm going to a meeting and having to present something, I'm making sure my presentation deck is in ship shape and everything's ready for that. But then I have to prove my time entries for my team. I have to respond to emails that I got earlier in the day. Sometimes in the plane, without being on Wi-Fi, I'll open up my email app, reply to my emails, file ones or process them, and then when I land, all that gets taken care of. Mm-hmm. And then yesterday I had to take a trip. It was a one-day trip to New York City and back, same day. I didn't even pack a suitcase. And just during the flight, I read like 80 pages of a book. And if I had been at home or at work or my normal schedule, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So in some ways, I'm pushing myself to do more on the flight, especially if it's a Friday flight, because I know that if I don't, I'm going to have to maybe catch up on stuff when I land. And that's the last thing I want to do Friday night or a Saturday. And so I found that having a flight, during the week can be one of my biggest productivity boosts, because it gives me at least a couple hours where I can't do anything else. I can't be on the phone. I can't be doing all this. So using that to my advantage. And sometimes I'll download training videos from the Dynamics Learning Portal before I go. I also have movies or TV series that I've either downloaded from Amazon or I store, and if I that can be a time where I can catch up on some of that stuff where, again, I might have been too busy if I'd been at home during that.
Yeah, agreed. So for me, kind of the prepping before I get on a plane, I've made peace with the fact, or maybe not even made peace, but just told myself, I assume I am going to have no internet connection on the plane, even if there's supposed to be one. They're not very reliable. They're rarely fast enough to be effective with anything. So I plan for that time to be offline time, even if I have the computer out and I'm doing something. So as part of that, I am focused on trying to get those emails out, the things that I have to be online for, done before I have to stand up and get in line to get on the plane. Once I'm in line and then getting on the plane, until we're up over the 10,000 feet and you hear the little ding and you can pull out your laptop and that kind of thing. I focus on having a book in front of me. I mean, that just is it's not getting in the way. It's not something that is really going to get the attention of anybody around you, paying attention to what you're doing. But it's just a great way to kind of take that breath, relax a little bit, separate from technology for, probably 20 to 30 minutes, depending on if you have any taxi time, or in Minneapolis right now we've got a de-ice on every plane, so that gets a little bit longer, but it's just a nice way to do that. And then regardless of whether I just keep reading at that point, or if I pull out the computer or a tablet or my phone or whatever that's going to be, I've invested in some noise canceling headphones, which have just made my flights so much more peaceful. And that I'll have them in with just silence or even rain sounds I'll put on in the background as I'm reading or doing whatever, and it's just a great way to filter out the noise and potential annoyances around me and keep me focused on whatever it is I'm trying to do, whether that's work, whether that's pleasure, for the duration of the flight.
Right. I'm actually not a fan of noise-canceling headphones, and I think it has to do with my large head and big ears. But I feel the pressure coming from them, and I've used the Bose ones, and I've used the Beats ones, and I've used the in-ear ones and the over-ear ones, and it feels like more pressure. I've got some over-the-ear headphones, the same one I used for podcasting. There's some $20 Behringer ones that I find, for me, is enough noise cancellation because they go over the ears, but then not as tiring on my ears as noise canceling ones are. But to each their own, and for you they might work well with your smaller head and smaller ears.
All I can do right now is think of Mo Sislak on The Simpsons getting all self-conscious about his ears right now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is good. Good tips for plane productivity, and I'll keep some of those in mind next time I go. The biggest thing is be prepared. Do a little checklist the night before. Make sure. I'm always over preparing and thinking I'm going to watch 25 movies and read 10 books, and I just got to remind myself, we're only going to be in the plane for 2 hours. You might not need all that stuff.
Agreed. But on the flip side, make sure that you assume the fact that you will have some sort of delay that you didn't expect. So make sure you have something to do.
One of the last episodes of CRM Audio, I was editing and feverishly uploading over my shared phone internet connection right up to the time they were closing the door, and it was like a movie where the bomb is going to go off, and it ended right before they said turn off your devices. It was awesome. This has been ProdCast, the personal productivity podcast from CRM Audio with Matthew C. Anderson and Joel Lindstrom. Follow Matthew on Twitter at @MCAnderson or on his blog, connectingthedata.com. Follow Joel Lindstrom on Twitter at Joel Lindstrom. ProdCast and the rest of the CRM Audio Network are available on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and anywhere else fine podcasts are available. This podcast is a production of Dynamic Podcasts, LLC.